All right, y'all, ladies and gentlemen, it is 2019, the year of neck and toes training, or what most people call full body training, right? I think neck and toes sounds sexy, right? Don't it? Neck and toes. Who don't want to do some neck and toes? All right, so I'm gonna get into this topic, right? Because I get asked a lot about how to put together a full body workout or a full body training routine, because day by day, full body workouts, full body training has become increasingly more popular as the days go on. And there's a lot of scientific research and studies that show full body training to be superior to body part training splits. Okay. So before I get into this topic, I want to set a little disclaimer, because on paper, even though on paper full body seems to be where it's at right now, if you've been doing body part splits majority or pretty much all of your training life, you may want to switch to full body training to get over whatever kind of plateaus you're dealing with. But on the flip side, if you've been doing full body training and hitting a plateau, you've been doing full body training for a long time, you may want to switch to a body part split of some kind, right? And that could be a bro split, it could be a push-pull leg split, it could be an upper-lower split, or something else, right? So it really depends on personally what you've been doing, because the thing that causes growth is adaptation. In order to create adaptation, you got to be doing something different than what you've already been doing, because you're not going to adapt to what you're already adapted to. Okay, so that's the disclaimer I want to make. But let's get into this and how to structure a full body training routine. Starting with the mindset of how you put together your training routine, you got to understand that the mindset that you had when you were putting together a bro split workout or a push-pull leg or upper-lower split workout, that don't really work with full body, okay? And that mindset is going to be the mindset of training muscles and muscle groups, okay? Because, you know what? If you got to hit your pec major and your pec minor in the workout, that's 2 exercises. If you got to hit your front delts and your side delts, that's another 2 exercises. You got 4 now. If you got to hit your rear delts and your traps, okay, that's now 6 exercises. If you got to hit your lats and your biceps, that's 2 exercises. If you got to hit your traps and you got to work your forearms, that's now 8 exercises. If you got to hit your glutes and your hamstrings, but you also got to hit your quads and your calves, that's now 10 exercises. You see what I'm saying? Basically, if you just need an exercise for each muscle group or each muscle in your entire body, you're gonna have the longest full body workout imaginable. It's gonna be ridiculous, and you will get burnt out doing this. Okay, you will not be able to do this 2.5 or 3 hour workout, very consistently throughout the week. It's gonna be very cumbersome, sloppy, and crazy looking. You just got through your 4th exercise and you got like 10 more exercises to go, right? So we got to be a little bit more efficient. So rather than thinking about training muscle groups or muscles, we got to think about training movement patterns. So let's talk about like 7 movement patterns, the primary 7 movement patterns that you need in terms of developing your ideal physique, right? So first off, you have a squat movement pattern. That's number 1. This is going to be things like a back squat, a front squat, a bodyweight squat, a goblet squat, a split squat, or a lunge. All these things fall under the category of a squat pattern, squat movement. Number 2, hinging, right? Now, hinging at the hips. This is any type of exercise like a deadlift, a stiff leg deadlift, a Romanian deadlift, a Bulgarian deadlift, all these kind of things, right? This falls under the hinge. So if you want to hit your glutes and your hamstrings, you're going to be hinging. If you want to hit your glutes and your quadriceps, you're going to be squatting, right? So we got those 2, and that's all lower body. Now, and also hip bridges also count as hinges, because that's still hinging at the hip. Anything that primarily targets your glutes is classified as hip hinging. And you do hit your hamstrings while doing hip bridges. Not as much as you do on a deadlift, but it does count. Now, then we got for upper body, we have vertical pushing and pulling and horizontal pushing and pulling. So that's 4 categories, right? For pushing, we got vertical and horizontal. And then for pulling, we got vertical and horizontal. So for pushing, vertical is going to be overhead pressing, dumbbell pressing, barbell pressing, handstands, handstand push-ups. For horizontal pressing, we have dumbbell chest press, we have floor presses, barbell presses, push-ups, all these things fall under that category. And we have exercises that are like a hybrid, okay? And that would be like an incline press, where it's kind of vertical but also kind of horizontal, like diagonal pressing, right? So that's very important too, which I'm going to get into a little bit later when we get into exercise selection. Now, for vertical and horizontal pulling, vertical pulling, we got lat pull downs, we got close grip lat pull downs, we got pull-ups, chin-ups, we have lat pull ins. And then for horizontal pulling, we got any kind of rows. We got pendlay rows, we got hang rows, we got dumbbell rows, and all of those kind of rows. Excuse me. Right? So we have everything that falls in that category. Now, moving on to core training. Now, when we think of hitting the abs and the obliques, right, we want strong, defined 6-pack abs or 4-pack abs with that kind of blurry bottom too, right, wherever you're at. And then we got the obliques, which is like that V that people go crazy about towards the bottom of your midsection, right? Cool. So in order to hit your abs and obliques, these are the 2 things that you can do simultaneously, right? Hitting your abs requires spinal flexion, right? And then hitting your obliques requires pivoting or rotating at the spine, or rotating at the torso. Your spine shouldn't really rotate. Don't go too crazy with the rotation, but just enough. So for example, a good demonstration of this would be like a cable wood chop, where you're starting from a high position with the cable, and then you're pulling across the body in a downward motion. So we're getting that pivoting, we're getting that torso rotation and the spinal flexion at the same time. So we're really hitting the obliques and really hitting the abs at the same time. So basically we got the squatting, the hinging, vertical pushing, vertical pulling, horizontal pushing and horizontal pulling, and then we have the spinal flexion / rotation. So that's like 7 exercises in total in a workout. It's very doable, okay? Now, you don't have to hit all of these in one workout necessarily. So now, we've laid out all the categories. So now the next thing is exercise selection, because this is everything. And it requires a little thinking here. It requires a little premeditation, because this is not random. Now, in terms of exercise selection, right? I like to break things up into sets. So what I mean by this is I got a set A and a set B. Now each set has its own designated movement patterns. So set A, for example, would have a squat, like a back squat, a vertical press, like a dumbbell or a barbell overhead press, a horizontal pull, like a barbell or a dumbbell row, and then have a core exercise like that cable wood chop with the spinal flexion and pivoting simultaneously, right? These are the primary movements that would be on set A. Then let's say there are 2 to 3 accessory exercises to work on smaller muscles that don't really get as much attention within these movements. So one of those accessory exercises would be, let's say, a leg curl. And I could put this leg curl before or after the squat, or I can superset the leg curl with the squat. Now, for upper body, things like rear delts and trapezes would be reverse flies. And then for biceps, I can have a dumbbell curl or a cable curl, let's say. And I can superset these 2 exercises together. Now, for those of you who don't know, when I say superset, this basically means 2 exercises that you do back to back with little to no rest time in between them. Now, set B is going to follow a very similar pattern. Slightly different, but very similar. So this would be where I have a hinge, like a deadlift, like a barbell conventional deadlift. a barbell or a dumbbell chest press, a bench press, and a vertical pull, like a lat pull down, a pull up, or a chin up, right? Or a close grip lat pull down, let's say. And then for core, I would have another exercise that creates spinal flexion and pivoting simultaneously. And those would be the 4 primaries. And then I can have another 2 to 3 accessory exercises where I would have leg extensions that I put after the deadlift. And then I have, let's say, a lateral dumbbell raise or a cable raise with a tricep extension supersetted together, right? Where I'm hitting the side delts and I'm hitting the triceps with a little extra volume. Now, with these 2 together, I have just now hit each muscle group twice within these 2 workouts with just set A and B, right? Now, set A and B would be duplicated throughout the week 4 to 6 days, for 4 to 6 days. So for example, when I say duplicated, it's going to be a very similar format with the same movement patterns, right? Those designated movement patterns, but the exercise variation is going to be different. So for each A workout is going to have a different squatting pattern. So let's say I do set A and set B, set A, set B, set A, set B. Now, these set A's and set B's, if I have 2 pairs of set A and set B, this is 4 workouts per week. If I have 3 pairs, that's 6 workouts per week. So I have 3 set A's on a 6-day week program, let's say, if I'm training for 6 days. So let's say the first A workout, I'm doing a barbell back squat. The second set A, I'm doing maybe leg presses or a front squat. And then the third set A, I'm doing either a lunge or a split squat, like a Bulgarian split squat, let's say. Right, see what I'm saying? So another example I can give here is, let's say you're doing a leg workout. Now typically on leg day, what do? A squat, a leg press, some kind of lunge, maybe a walking lunge or something like that. And for the 4th exercise, maybe you're doing leg extensions or something like that, right? Same thing for if you were focusing on glutes and hamstrings on leg day. You would do maybe stiff leg deadlifts, maybe you do a conventional deadlift, then a sumo deadlift, then leg curls, right? Something along those lines. The only difference is rather than doing all these things on one day, you're just doing them on multiple days during the week. So you can have 4 or 6 training days, right? It would matter on what your schedule is like, right? What your schedule permits, and then how much training volume you want to get in. So that really all depends on you, whether you want to train 4 to 6 days. But either one works. Now, I will say that for body composition, more frequency in training days works. So chances are you're going to burn a lot more body fat training 6 days a week than if you were to train 4. But if you were to just focus on strength primarily, you just wanted to get as strong as possible, you may only want to have 4 training days rather than 6. It really depends on your energy levels, what level of fitness you're at, things like that, all these kind of things, how much you eat during the day, all of these kind of things, what your sleep quality is. All these things are going to be factored into how much you train. Now, what I will say, if you're going to train 6 days a week, obviously you're not going to train 6 days a week at just the fullest of intensity. So you can periodize it, right? You can undulate it. So for example, let's say the first pair of workouts is designated to high intensity to low volume, which means that you're going to be lifting heavy weight for less reps and maybe even less sets. So let's say, on those days you're doing 3 or 4 sets of, let's say, 4 to 6 reps. Now, on that second pair, maybe you're doing moderate weight and high volume. So let's say maybe on those days you're doing 4 sets, but it's at a minimum of 8 reps to a maximum of 16 to 20 reps, right? On those days. And then on the third pair is where you're doing lightweight, moderate lightweight to moderate or high volume. So an example of this would be, you can either do a barbell bench press for, let's say starting at 80% of your 1 rep max, 85% of your 1 rep max, or for other people, RPE of 8, right? 8 RPE. versus doing a dumbbell chest press for 10 to 12 reps versus doing chest flies for 16 to 20 reps. You see the difference? They're not all at the same intensity levels. So your nervous system isn't getting drained and taxed out to the point where you burn yourself out really early on in your training program. So these are things that you want to consider also. Now, as far as training volume, one of the major benefits to full body training is the frequency. So if you train 4 to 6 days a week following this format, you can hit each muscle group 4 to 6 times a week at different levels of intensity and stimulus. So you're getting a lot of variety. This makes your training very interesting. Now, here's also an amazing benefit of doing this. Let's say you miss a workout, right? Things happen. It's not as bad because it's not like you're missing an entire day. Whereas like if you were doing a bro split where you were training each muscle group once a week. If you miss a training day, oh, that's brutal because you just missed an entire day, an entire week of that training. Right? If you miss your chest day, that's it. You're not training chest for the rest of the week, not unless you can manage to make it up somewhere else. But with full body training, it's not as bad of a blow, right? So things to consider there. And that pretty much breaks it up there. That pretty much breaks that down. Okay, so you're hitting each muscle group every single training day, but you're doing it with this structure, for example, is a great way to structure your training where you can train for longevity, see consistent results without beating up your body and doing too much at one time.